AskReddit by Inevitable Loudmouth. What is the strangest mystery that is still unsolved? The lost A-bomb off the coast of America, which the US government said not to worry about in the 50s and tried to cover up, was dumped in the ocean in an aviation accident and it's still lost to this day. 100x more powerful than what was dropped in Japan. There was this other bomb that fell out of a bomb bay above the US. They told everyone it was fine but later revealed that 3 out of 4 safety thingies had been actuated. Only one more and there would have been an explosion. I can't find it but it should be in here. https://en.m.wiki.org/list_of_military_accidents along with other accidents etc. This dude got lost in the catacombs, and they found camera footage of his journey, but at some point he drops the camera and just starts to run. As far as I know, nobody has found out WTF happened to him. He probably panicked, heard a rat, something fell, and ran in an intentionally erratic pattern because he thought something was chasing him. Then he got lost on his way back. Unsolved murder of an entire family in Japan. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/setagaya_family_murder which to this day remains unsolved despite DNA evidence indicating the ancestry of the killer, a sand sample left by the killer which was traced back to the California desert near Edwards AFB, and even sesame seeds in the killer's stool. The Miyazawa family. Just listen to the Casa File podcast on this and it has my mind blown. Someone entered the family home around 11:30 p.m., killed everyone, ate some ice cream, took a nap, pooped and didn't flush, changed clothes and left like 8 hours after the crime. 20 years on and we don't know who or why. Would there not be a load of DNA from the killer in the poop? Perhaps not the absolute strangest, but in March of 2020, the Windows market share for the long discontinued Windows XP skyrocketed by about 10% in China. This spike in Windows XP use for just 1 month is for unknown reasons. Some people think the Chinese government could have been looking for security flaws in the operating system to take advantage of. After all, lots of sensitive government equipment still runs on Windows XP. I'm pretty sure even some equipment, like machining equipment, used to make parts that are used by the military run Windows XP. The suicide of Lavina Johnson, a black female US Army private who was found shot to death inside a burning tent with a broken nose, black eyes, broken teeth, raped and acid burns on her genitals in July 2005. US Army ruled her death as suicide. There was a whole podcast episode about this on Crime Junkies and it seriously swayed me into no longer looking into going into the military. What a fucking disgrace, you can't serve your country honorably without potentially falling victim to being raped and or murdered by your own damn comrades. This infuriates me. Magdalena Zuck, https://m.youtube.com/watch?vvxjr8nqji a Polish woman who died in Egypt. She had arranged a trip to Egypt at very short notice as a surprise for her partner. He didn't have a valid passport and couldn't get one on time, so she went alone. Almost immediately, she began to act incredibly erratic, but was being helped by a Polish-speaking Egyptian man at the hotel. The hotel didn't want her. The hospital turned her away, and when she tried to board an earlier flight home, she was not allowed to board because of her behavior. Eventually she was admitted to hospital but, despite being restrained, managed to jump out of the window. The boyfriend had arranged a mutual friend to come get her but he arrived to find her dead. This conversation, https://yahoo.be/ihgfzomsjdy with her boyfriend is one of the most disturbing things I've seen. There is evidence that the Egyptian man actually knew the boyfriend and theories that the boyfriend was somehow in on all this, Which is all very bizarre considering she planned the trip without him even knowing. Deleted. I love the passion you have for archaeology. I've never thought about it in this light. Thank you for enlightening me. I will forever post about my great aunt when these come up. Where is Kimberly Langwell? She disappeared in 1999 in Beaumont, Texas. Her car was found in the parking lot of an Eckerd's drugstore, but her purse and keys were missing. Her cell phone was inside. We all know she wouldn't have left her daughter, Tiffany, just like that. She loved her and loved life and those who surrounded her. Everyone who knew Kimberly loved her. She was the shining star on a dark night. If you have seen her alive, please call the police. I have posted her case below. http://charlieproject.org/case/Kimberly-and-Langwell. I'm in Beaumont and research missing women in this area and the Houston area. I think about her every time I pass that area of Phelan-Dowlen. How a lower class English woman became an important Egyptian scholar based on her memories from her supposed past life as an ancient Egyptian priestess. She actually described a garden in an ancient temple that was later discovered matching her description, and in the location she said it was. She knew things that hadn't been published before and had been worshipping ancient Egyptian gods from the age of 3. https://en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/Dorothy_ed. The whereabouts of the last Gestapo chief Heinrich Müller. The last verified sighting of him was in Berlin roughly 3 days before it fell. He had stated he knew full well what the Russians did to prisoners and he had no intentions of being captured. As chief of the Gestapo, he more than likely had access to foreign documents as well as ways to replicate them. Both the CIA and the KGB spent time looking for him, but no trace has ever been found. He probably went to Argentina like the rest of the Nazis. Hundreds of hackers have tried to solve the Cicada 3301 mystery to no avail. https://en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/cicada_3301. Here's a good doc discussing the mystery. https://yahoo.be/i207blsszy. Deleted. 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 Sounds to me like it had been damaged in a collision. People initially tried to patch it up, then got scared, probably due to the heavy listing, and decided to abandon it on the dinghy and life rafts. They probably made distress calls that remained unheard due to the antenna problem, and ended up lost adrift, like many sailors before them. And X-200B. People precipitously abandoning ships or camps in a mass panic is likely the explanation to many such mysteries, like the Marie Celeste, or even Dyatlov Pass. This is my favorite weird and barely known one. Back in 2013, an unknown group assaulted a power substation in California. By all appearances it was pretty sophisticated, scouted firing positions, all casings wiped of prints. They targeted transformers so they'd take time to overheat before triggering any alarms, also knew exactly when the police would arrive. No suspect or motive to this day. They also cut some fiber optic cables in a vault nearby. Conspiracy types think it was a dry run by Russia or possibly China to see how effective an attack like that might be. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/metcalf_sniper_attack. Look up a term called red cells and how they operate with NSA and DoD to protect sensitive domestic sites like power plants, airports, various gov facilities. Not a conspiracy BTW, there's actually tons of info available if you look. The suicide of Ellen Greenberg, 27 stab wounds in different areas of the body. Edit. 20 stab wounds. 27 was her age at the time of death. Thanks for correcting Mart 4165. Suicide stabbings are so ridiculous. There's a case from Denmark in 2003 where a woman was found dead by her husband, who called the police and said she had killed herself. She was on the bedroom floor next to a broken lamp, her wristwatch was torn off and her panties pulled down, and she had 179 stab wounds. Because it was a Sunday, they had to call in a criminal assistant on his off day, and he deemed it a suicide, because she had a history of depression. What happened to Brian Schaffer? https://en.m.wiki.org/disappearance_of_Brian_Schaffer. This happened in my hometown. This med student went to a bar with friends and then fully disappeared off the face of the earth. Edit. The podcast True Crime Garage has an incredible series on this case. The hosts are both from Columbus and around Brian's age. They talk through the whole case in depth, and they also have a few guests that they talk with as well. Yes. How the hell did he make it out of that bar without being seen? And after losing his whole family under sad circumstances, I hope his brother gets the chance to learn what happened to Brian. That guy who ran away from the airport hopped the fence and was never seen again. Just read the wiki article. https://en.wiki.org/wiki/disappearance_of_Lars_mid on him. My money would be firmly on him having copped a subdural hematoma in the assault. Shame his friends didn't stay. They'd almost certainly have picked that something wasn't right, taken him back to hospital, and he'd have got a CT and then probably surgery to relieve it. For those wondering how it ties together, subdurals are slow bleeds of veins inside your head, often from a traumatic injury, that can keep bleeding and slowly over days can build enough pressure to cause pretty nasty symptoms. And paranoia, hallucinations, personality changes are definitely some of them. Source: Doctor. Seen quite a few, but only ever with more strokey symptoms and never the batshit mad symptoms. The guy's motive for shooting up all those people in Vegas. This one has bothered me for quite some time as well. The guy had no criminal record, no history of mental illness, no known religious or political affiliations, was financially well off, and no known relationship issues. Very strange indeed. The USS Cyclops, a coal ship, disappeared with 306 men. The largest US Navy loss of life that didn't involve combat. https://en.m.wiki.org/us_cyclops_open bracket ac-4 Of the 4 built, 3 sank without a trace. Sounds like you could solve this mystery by making a model of the ship. Asher degree. Girl leaves her house in the middle of the night during a storm and disappeared. The only problem is that she was terrified of thunder and lightning and had no motive for leaving because her home life was fine. Then her clothes and backpack were found a year later in an abandoned construction site. Is this the girl wearing all white that they think is buried in a parking lot? The disappearance of the Beaumont children, the 26th of January 1966. Beaumont children disappearance. https://en.wiki.org/wiki/disappearance_of_the_Beaumont_children. I've grown up hearing about this my whole life, and I've been obsessed. It's horrible for those poor parents to never know. At the start of lots of chapters of the Quran there are mysterious groups of letters. No one knows what they mean, although there are lots of theories. https://en.wiki.org/wiki/mucata%ca%bfat. Thank you for posting something new. That's quite interesting. The 1987 Arkansas murders of Don Henry and Kevin Ives. And every single possible witness surrounding them. Like Keith McCaskill, who claimed to be on the tracks that night. He talked to the special prosecutor about what he saw, then realized the prosecutor was dirty. After coming forth as a witness, he began saying goodbye to his loved ones and planned his own funeral arrangements. Shortly after, he was stabbed 113 times. The Hinterkaifeck murders. Super creepy, and the fact that there was evidence the murderers were in the house watching the family for a while before killing them just totally freaks me out. Edit, thanks for the silver. First time award recipient here. And gold too. Happy almost cake day to me. Are you familiar with the book The Man from the Train? The writers think that it was a serial killer, German guy, that killed a bunch of families in the United States before going back to Germany. Flight 19 of the 5th of December, 1945. 5 bomber craft on a routine training run became lost while heading back and eventually disappeared entirely. Audio has them saying that they thought they had ended up over the Florida Keys, but wind could not have allowed that. Even more interesting is the fact the rescue craft dispatched to locate them also disappeared. https://yahoo.be/agmcqnncat w?263 right square bracket open bracket https://yahoo.be/agmcqncat what e equals 263. It explains well here. Of course, video from Limino. What on earth happened to the Trump family? https://www.mamamia.com.au/Trump-family/close bracket. So it's this Australian family who owned a berry farm. Somehow Emma and Mrs. Trump and their 3 grown kids developed the belief that they weren't safe and they needed to flee their farm without cell phones or anything traceable, credit cards, etc. It sounds like the oldest son wasn't sold on whatever it was that led them to flee. He brought his phone, but eventually it got tossed from the car. He ended up bailing first and taking a train home. From there the rest of the family slowly separated and suffered various degrees of emotional breaks. The 2 girls stole a car. Somehow they got separated and one made it home, but the other was found on the floor in the backseat of some guy's car in a catatonic state. He spotted her after he started down the road. Eventually the parents were found wandering around aimlessly. Fortunately they were all okay physically, but WTF happened? Was someone. Just read about this through the article you shared. How have all those involved, the family, police, medical professionals, remained so mum on what happened? The true author of My Immortal, a horrible fanfiction that has a cult following. The more you dive into it, the weirder and deeper the mystery gets. Interconnected webs, false flags, all kinda stuff. I don't think the real author can ever be revealed. There have been too many false flags already, and the story itself is a decade old. If I remember correctly, the author's fanficnet account doesn't exist anymore, and the email account it was created with got deleted or something. That and the false flags would make it impossible to prove the authenticity of the author, even if they decided to come forward. Personally, I think it was satire. But I do really like the thought of some normal, 25-year-old woman living amongst us, cringing every once in a while at the memory of her fanfic past. An unknown group of people broke into an FBI building, and no one has found out who they are. But the best part of the story is, they did it by leaving a sticky note that said do not lock the door tonight, and it worked. Edit. To everyone asking how they left the note, they just stuck the note to the front door. Probably should have specified. Edit 2. I'm an approved member of our What's the Rule now. Edit 3. I know it's been solved. I heard about it 8 years ago, and never learned that it was solved. Imagine being the guy who left it unlocked. Which of the 3 astronauts aboard Apollo 10 was responsible for the floating turd? Who pooped the bunk? Albert Johnson. The Mad Trapper of Rat River. A pretty cool mostly forgotten story about a man chased by the RCMP through the north. The identity of and what happened to DB Cooper. A man on a plane called himself DB Cooper and claimed to have a bomb in his suitcase. He took the flight crew hostage, and when he got the money he asked for, he had the flight crew start flying again. Eventually he jumped out of the plane with a couple of parachutes and the money. No one knows where he went or if he even survived. I've told this on Reddit before. We lived near SeaTac Airport. My dad often went by DB. Our last name was a navigator in the Air Force, so could guide pilots by the stars, and worked for Boeing. Even crazier, his appearance was not unlike Cooper's, and Cooper was part of his mother's maiden name. Spoiler alert, it wasn't my dad, but the part that has always amazed my family is that the FBI came calling just a day or two after it happened. This was way before the internet, of course, or computerized databases, I think, so how did they make the connection so quickly? Pretty impressive, we've always thought. Ken McElroy's murder. This Dow Checano terrorized an entire town until the town decided that they had enough, and then somebody shot him in broad daylight in front of a bunch of witnesses. To be fair, he probably deserved it. But what makes it interesting is that everyone claims to have had their eyes closed or be tying their shoe at the time or something, so oh boy, I wish I could help officer, but I didn't see anything. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/ken_mclroy. The real mystery there is how you get that many people to cooperate in one lie. Damn, he must have been the greatest asshole of all time. Oh god, here I go on another 2-hour binge of reading every comment in the thread. Deleted. Tammy Lynn Leopard is one that really bothers me. She was an actress for the movie Scarface and up and left the shoot when she saw a murder scene. The story goes she went to a Hollywood party and saw something that made her think she was being followed and someone wanted to kill her. Her boyfriend apparently dropped her off and she was never seen again. Her mom died still looking for her. So sad. My heart breaks for her family. That one time when the PM of Australia went to the beach. It even coined the term "do the Harold Holt" when you leave suddenly or without letting anyone know. The Lady of the Dunes. No one knows who she is. It's a pretty crazy story. Stephen King's son Joe Hill made a theory that she was an extra in the movie Jaws, since a woman in the background of the movie looks very similar to her and can be seen in the same clothes the Lady of the Dunes. It makes a lot of sense but doesn't really explain who killed her or anything. Malaysian Flight 370. Here's a really good video and sort of gives us probably the closest answer we will get. https://yahoo.be/kd2khvk-q8. The Bobbitt's Void is a region of outer space that contains no galaxies or stars, and we don't know why. According to Wikipedia, there are 60 known galaxies where there should be around 2,000. Not quite zero, but interesting either way. The Tylenol murders from the 1980s, where like 5 or 6 people from Chicago consumed Tylenol laced with cyanide and died. They had one suspect but he won nail for it, but still went to prison because they tried to extort Johnson & Johnson, the company that makes Tylenol. Edit. Autocorrect sucks. My mom had bought Tylenol at the exact jewel that day. It was actually in Arlington Heights, a Chicago suburb. She hadn't opened it yet. There were cars going up and down the street with bullhorns warning people to throw it out. I was 2 at the time. Crazy. Who killed John Bernard Ramsey? This is the one that bugs me the most. How is this still unsolved? The theory that the brother did it and the parents protected him is a pretty good theory, but how could investigators fail to find any proof of that? That one where there was a shooting at a gender reveal party only for it to turn out that the person throwing the party had faked the. I just want to know why for so many things. This was solved. I live about 10 miles from this location. The answer is drugs. Coleraine is a shithole. And it made local news, but I guess not national, that the boyfriend was involved in a drug deal that went sideways earlier in the week. The shooting was retribution. On mobile, so can't locate the link, but pull up WLWT.com and search their stories. The identity of Jack the Ripper. Yeah, there are so many questions and theories surrounding this one. It would be neat to know once and for all who it was. In 1994, close to 100 schoolchildren, 60 on record, described seeing a disc-shaped craft land behind their school during morning break time in Ruwa, Zimbabwe. Many of them interacted with beings that fit the grey alien description, with the children receiving what is described as some sort of telepathic communication. They all still stick to their stories today. Example 1, https://www.youtube.com/watch?p1z2ekwx1zy closed bracket comma example 2, https://www.youtube.com/watch?yyxgdsfk0 close bracket comma example 3, https://www.youtube.com/watch?var5ykj1rbhq closed bracket dart. Here is the original footage of the interviews with the kids at the school. https://www.youtube.com/watch?var m93gnmy4m right square bracket open bracket https://www.youtube.com watch v equals im93gnmi4 m30 mins. This is incredibly interesting, and I truly find it to be the most legit UFO case ever recorded in history. Nearly 100 children who all telepathically spoke to an alien being are able to explain a consistent story with complex ideas that they have a difficult time even explaining. We still have no definitive proof of who this Socrates guy is. On one hand, he's mentioned constantly by philosophers from his time, often used as an example character, and several works are attributed to his name. On the other hand, we have countless legal records and censuses that confirm the existence of Aristotle and Plato, but none that link back to Socrates. He's either a very prolific philosopher, or an in-joke that classical philosophers would reference when they didn't know who to attribute quotes to. We do know he was blackballed by the government to kill himself. Wouldn't that be enough to suggest that they got rid of those legal documents? The Voynich manuscript. Nobody knows if it's legit or just an elaborate joke. Edit. You can look at it here. https://archive.org/details/the Voynich manuscript /page/n3/mode/2up. It's a cookbook. It's a cookbook. The Frog Boy murders 5 South Korean boys went looking for salamander eggs in the forest one day. They disappeared. Their skeletons were found years later in a shallow grave on the mountain. Still unsolved. Brian Schaffer went into a bar in Ohio in camera. Was never seen leaving and has been missing 14 years. It's unreal. I recommend True Crime Garage. The Conker La Pass in Ladakh. This region lies in the disputed border of India and China, and is truly the most inaccessible places in the world. In 1962, the armies of both the countries were engaged in a severe conflict. After this, both China and India entered into an agreement according to which none will be allowed to patrol the region, but can keep an eye on it from a distance. After this, a popular belief floated that the Conker La Pass in Ladakh is a hideous base of UFOs. The area has forever remained a no man's land due to its territorial limits and is the reason why the UFOs have chosen it as their operational base. Reportedly, many have seen these UFOs and both the Indian and Chinese governments are aware of these developments. In 2006, Google Maps 2 baffled the world with some images that looked like military facilities. but till date the whole issue remains mysterious and unexplainable. I just did some googling and seems China is pulling troops out of there today. I looked on Google Earth and it seems super remote. Is it the mountains that make it so inaccessible? The Winchester Mystery House. I watched a documentary on this house when I was 10 and it has stuck with me ever since. It's about a woman named Sarah Winchester. Her husband and baby both died. Her husband owned a rifle company, and she went to a psychic. The psychic told her that she is being haunted by the ghosts of all the people who have died by the hands of those guns, and that is the reason for the tragedy that happened in her life. To appease the spirits, the psychic told her to build a great house for them and she was not allowed to stop building or tragedy will strike again. She didn't get help from anyone, but she did it and kept building for the next 38 years. There are stairs that lead to nowhere, windows that don't look out, hallways that wrapped around. It has 161 rooms and it's huge. Was it really the ghosts? Was she insane? I have no idea, but it's the most interesting story I've ever heard. Deleted.